Welcome to the RegenBiome podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Gene Felix Turcotte, a certified integrative health practitioner, level 1 and 2, certified in blood chemistry and functional lab testing. I love helping people with GI issues, weight loss, mold exposure, heavy metals, mysterious problems, and health optimization. I love helping people get to the root cause of their health struggles and simplify healing. Ready to transform your health? Go to RegenBiome.com and click book a call. All the support is greatly appreciated. If you enjoy, please write a 5-star review on iTunes or the platform of your choice. Enjoy the podcast and please share this with anyone that this would help. Welcome to the RegenBiome podcast. So today, episode 13, here we come. So I'm really excited about this episode because we are going to be talking about a specific genetics that I'm really passionate about. So a lot of people have this gene variant, or some people would want to say, can call it a gene mutation. But so this is a really impactful genetics in regards to environmental toxins and the thousands of chemicals that we're being exposed on a day-to-day basis, especially in this modern era. So, and we're going to be talking about a herbicide that most people know about, glyphosate, and the negative impact on this gene variant as well, and on the health of newborns as well, even further, because of the responsibility of this genetic in the detoxification of this super invasive compound. So definitely is something we're going to be chatting about today, and the connection also in the rise of mental health issues based on the exposure of glyphosate as well too, and how this it's a really impactful genetic. So and it's not so that we're going to zoom in so much, because there's a lot more things to really consider into this when it comes down to genomics, and it's not just one thing. It's a whole, there's a whole variety of other genetics that that does play a big key role in this. So yeah, so this is what we're going to be talking about today. So again, as a reminder, before we get started, any of the information shared in this podcast should not be taken as medical advice and is for learning purposes only. Always refer to your medical doctor before making any changes to your diet or supplement regimen. Okay, so let's dive into this today. So I will be speaking about that gene called the PON1 gene. So PON1 gene, specifically the RS662, known as serum peroxidase 1 gene. So the PON1 gene helps the body detoxify organophosphate toxins found in pesticides or herbicides like Roundup, which is well used still worldwide. It's so detrimental. It's crazy that this chemical is still being allowed to be used on lawns, and even just simply go to Canadian Tire here in Canada and to use it. It's ludicrous. But anyways, I digress. We'll dive into this. So, and it's found on genetically modified foods like soy, corn, or wheat, and there's many other ones too that are being used, that it is being used on. So the role of the PON1 gene is to give the body's instruction to make enzymes that helps us detoxify from pesticides, herbicides, and neurotoxins that can damage the nervous system. So that's a big problem. Mental health issues is just on the rise for some really relevant reasons. So, and also with the PON1, so it's a potent antioxidant. So its role is an anti-inflammatory and anti-apoptotic enzyme. So meaning it's an anti-cell death. So make sure that your cell don't die. So we want that. We want to make sure of that. And so it's mostly made in the liver, and it's found circulating tightly bound to and attached to HDL cholesterol. So that's really important. A lot of people, so HDL is known as the good cholesterol. So it helps prevent the HDL and LDL cholesterol from oxidation. So lipid oxidation is a bad news for the body. So we don't want that happening. So a lot of people, like in myself, with excess iron overload, and with a one variant, so I'm not homozygous, meaning I don't have two copies of the PON1. RS622 genes, but I have one copy. Thanks, Mom. So, because my mother also has one copy of this gene. So, but I cannot blame it on her. What can we do? We just need to know how to optimize it, right? So, and the problem with this is when lipid oxidation comes in, so it creates oxidative stress. And so obviously oxidative stress, inflammation goes hand in hand. So if oxidative stress goes high, inflammation will go high as well too. So it's vice versa. And that increases your risk of arterial problems. So this is why testing homocysteine is so important. You can test on blood chemistry, oxidized LDL as well, MPO as well, which is such an myeloperoxidase. It's such an underused marker, and it's not that expensive as well too. Mostly in the US is available, but yeah. So the thing with that, the PON1 gene, so multiple studies showed that the PON1 gene resulted in helping to decrease levels of oxidative stress related diseases. So such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, chronic liver failure, HIV infection, autism, Alzheimer's, ADHDs, and so many others. So super impactful. And then it also helps protect the body from the metabolites of homocysteine. So when we break down homocysteine, there's a metabolite that comes from it, and that compound is really toxic. So, and the PON1 genes helps detoxify that to prevent further damage to the body. And then it is also a calcium-dependent enzyme, meaning without calcium, it cannot turn on. It cannot work. This is why when it comes down to biochemistry, I cannot stress enough the importance of cofactors, right? There's so many genetics, like a CBS, which if you're a CBS gene does not, and a lot of people have a lot of CBS variants, which can create an abundance and surplus of ammonia, which we don't want that. So ammonia is really invasive for the gut. It's invasive for the brain, and it will deplete a lot of other things. But as the simple zinc and B6 deficiencies will affect the CBS, which if the CBS genetics does not work, guess what we can't make? Glutathione. So glutathione is essential antioxidant, the mother of our antioxidants in the body, which we need to detoxify from so many environmental toxins and compounds, including in glyphosate and many other things that we breathe in every single day. So those are great studies. So we call it is called the Chemicals Cohort Study. So it stands for the Center for the Health Assessment of Mothers and Children of Salinas. So, which is a community university partnership that studies the impact of pesticides and allergen exposures to pregnant women and their children. So mostly. And then the potential effect of these exposures on growth, neurodevelopment, and respiratory disease. So this study, so what they found is that in newborns, they may be 26 to 50 times more at risk when they are exposed to this to organophosphates and chemicals. So that means they are 260 times percent to 500% more susceptible to exposure to certain organophosphate compounds than other newborns. So just like glyphosates. And the most susceptible newborns may be 65 to 130 times more sensitive to those compounds and pesticides. So the thing is, with babies, they aren't fully developed, so their genes are not fully activated yet. So this is why mothers, it is a must. If you have, and I think screening for the PON1 gene is so important because you can help your children and your child, and you're not even your newborn. So inside of you growing that needs everything possibly to prevent any further development issue. So this is highly important, like I said again, for mothers that are looking to conceive, to know their PON1 gene status is so important. You can't stress that enough. So great studies, so in regards to the impact of organophosphate compounds such as glyphosate, so especially in the PON1 genetics, and very important. So let's talk a bit more about glyphosate itself. So, I mean, it's going to be a big deep dive into this. This episode might be a little bit longer than expected, but that's good. It's going to be, I'm really excited about this, to really highly topic. I'm very passionate about this. So, because this is such an invasive compound that has impacted everybody, and even myself, which I'll talk about how to test for that. But even somebody that it takes really good care of my health, and especially when it comes down to the food that I eat, just to make to reduce my levels of glyphosate. It's even though I still get impacted by this, so I must practice daily lifestyle changes and many things like saunas to make sure I expel this invasive compound. So glyphosate was first patented by Stuffer Chemical Co. as a strong metal chelator. Remember that. Originally designed to clean minerals scaling out of boiler systems. So basically, it was patented in 1961 for such purposes as descaling mineral deposits out of the pipes. So that's a huge major thing. The body operates on minerals. We need, it's the spark plug of life. Big problem, especially in the soil as well as things grows. So it was acquired by Monsanto, well-known name, in the 1970s and bought from Monsanto by Bayer in 2018, if I recall. So glyphosate is now mostly used as an herbicide. So it's a desiccant and is patented as a broad-spectrum antibiotic. It kills the good bugs. We don't want this in the soil, and it stays quite some time. So between 2005 and 2014, 13.42 billion pounds were sprayed worldwide. Let that sink in. That's pretty darn scary when you know exactly what this thing can do. So the current glyphosate usage is estimated at 2 billion pounds each year globally. So, and the thing is, glyphosate is promoted as being biodegradable, but it has a half-life of 21 years on sand soil and 30 years on heavy clay soil. That's a huge issue. So from the time it's being sprayed or applied, it will last at least 21 years. Well, we're spraying this every single year. Now count this. So, I mean, it's been starting to be used in agriculture in the 1970s. So count every single years. That's where we're talking about over 200 plus years, if not more. So huge issue. So what foods are generally being impacted by or glyphosates or, the annual. So I have a beautiful graph here. So on the average annual use of glyphosate, so on different types of crops, so soybeans, corn, cotton, fallow, wheat, it's crazy. I mean, the amount of pounds a year just on wheat, it says 8,600,000 pounds a year. And I think that's even more for the US. So that's pretty insane. Citrus, sorghum, almonds, grapes, sugar beets, tree nuts, sunflowers, rice, beans, peas, stone fruits, on pasture as well too, on the grass, huge issue. Barley, canola. I mean, welcome to Canada. What do we have here in the west of Canada? Canola fields, a ton of them. You think that that glyphosate is not being used? Yeah, it is. It certainly is. And it just runs in the water as well, too. So apples, alfalfa, peanuts, sugarcane, oats. Oats is a big one. Oh, this is why organic oats is so important. But not only this, there's specific types. So my favorite one is the one from Costco from 1 Degree, which is tested for glyphosate. So you should abandon Quicker, which I'll talk about that. It's pretty nasty stuff. Mr. Quicker is not helping you. So sweet corn, tomatoes, potatoes, avocados, olives, pomegranates, stone fruit, crazy. So there's a huge amount of things. So, okay. And now you ask, is glyphosate non-toxic? So Monsanto has argued that glyphosate is harmless to humans because our cells don't have the shikimate pathway, biological pathway, which is the pathway that glyphosate disrupts to kill plants. However, our gut bacteria does have this pathway inside of them. That's a big problem, right? So we depend upon these bugs, the supply us from these bugs that supply us with essential amino acids produced through the pathway, and with many other nutrients such as your vitamins and short chain fatty acids that helps and repair the intestinal tract. So the problem with glyphosate is that by killing these bacteria in the shikime pathway, which again, it's the root used by good bacteria, fungi, algae, parasites, and plants for biosynthesis of aromatic amino acids. So those amino acids are so important. So those are essential amino acids that the body actually produce. So phenylalanine, tyrosine, and tryptophan. So tyrosine, what does it get used for? Making thyroid hormone. We need proper tyrosine levels to make proper thyroid function. That's a huge problem. Tryptophan, how about that? Who doesn't have sleep problems? Low melatonin, low serotonin, depression. Hey, so which all three of these amino acids are so important precursors of making neurotransmitters like serotonin, melatonin, dopamine, and adrenaline. So which directly impacts how we think, feel, and act every single day. So it's a major problem. So now get this. So you need tryptophan to produce serotonin and B3, okay? Our bodies don't make tryptophan and have to get it from the diet and the healthy bugs. So low tryptophan levels can lead to a disease called pellagra, which causes diarrhea, dermatitis, dementia, and even death. And that all simply caused by a low B3, which used to be a big problem. So now, if you don't have that tryptophan to actually convert that B3 into NAD, so if you don't have B3, you cannot make energy. So low tryptophan leads to low B3 leads to low NAD, and low NAD leads to poor mitochondrial function, which good luck trying to make hormones, detoxify the body, or simply staying alive. So a lot of people just taking NAD, which is some contraindication as well, that more NAD can do damage, which that's going to be for another show, because certain macrophages uses NAD, so like the M2 ones, inflammatory ones, in some cases of people with excess M2. So you might be feeding the wrong guys at this time and place. So this is why you can see a lot of people with muscle atrophy in some cases, so that the body can actually make energy itself because it needs to get the tryptophan in order to convert that B3. So you could see, the body's trying to get the tryptophan from the muscles. So that's catabolism. That's not good. You're starving the body. So yes, eat your protein. So how many people on blood chemistry, if you have poor hydrochloric acid, that you're going to lead to a lot of bile issues as well. So if you don't have enough hydrochloric acid, you won't be able to activate also your bile, which emulsify fats, and then fats are really useful and really important in absorbing your minerals as well too. So there's a huge chain of event can happen from that. So since depression is associated with low brain serotonin, right, and antibiotics kills the good bug that make tryptophan, would you think, can it increase mental health issues? Yeah, I would say so. Is it safe to say that antibiotics have a high likelihood of causing depression? Well, certainly if you have some genetics predisposition that also have, you have a harder time converting that tryptophan into serotonin to make 5-HTP to help you for sleep and for melatonin production, can certainly disrupt the brain, right? So the shikime pathway is so important. So this is why glyphosate attacks that simple, that incredible pathway that is so useful. So yeah, no, it's wrong that it does not affect the body, the human body. Yeah, it does. Certainly does. So for example, when glyphosate is used on wheat crops, right, it's normally used a few days prior to harvesting the wheat. So what they do is they spray the fields, and then the wheat basically dies off, and it becomes nice and crispy for the compounding machine to come in and harvest. So they do the same thing with oat crops. So pretty nasty. And so now you think like all the wheat's going to the silo on top of that. And then it stays there, or with corn, we see this happening a lot. And then talk about, we have a mixture of glyphosates, we have a mixture of aflatoxins, mold, On top of that, we're killing the liver, we're killing the shikimi pathway, we're depressed, we're feeding ourselves with with GMO corn on a day-to-day basis for a lot of people, all these pesticides. So you could see how bad of a thing it's can create a big wave of issues pretty darn quickly and over time. And still to this day, I mean, so many people are even using that on their lawn. Kids are playing on the ground, dogs and animals. Do you think they're not being impacted? Yeah, they are too. Little furry pets are really being impacted by that. The parks, the lawns, the golf course, all of that stuff. If you live nearby and close to these places and parks, and yeah, I really hope that you have a sun in your home and that you're actually practicing, weekly, daily detoxification lifestyle practices in order to reduce your levels. Because it's not when you will get exposed. It's like, it's not if, it's not when. I mean, that's to say that this is something that I always say with mold, but anyways, I digress. But that's the thing, like, we're all going to be exposed to it. There's just no escaping it with the amount of billion pounds being sprayed globally. So, and again, Mr. Quicker is not your best friend. So ditch that hose. If you go to Costco, do not purchase. We vote with our dollar, so vote with your dollar. Buy from a proper person or a company that will actually test, that will actually do the best in the possibility to actually limit exposure. It's so important because yes, even in organic foods, you're still being exposed in smaller degrees because it's inevitable, even though if they don't use it on the crops, water, air, rains, all of that stuff, it does matter. So to say that, so then what's the point of eating organic? Well, that's the point. You're reducing your level. So why you should be eating? Like, I think I strongly believe, I mean, you do you, but I always recommend eating organic as much as possible and cleaning our fruits and vegetables and detoxifying. So important. We cannot not go about it. So glyphosate doesn't just affect the gut bugs, right? So it creates a storm of hormone mass by mimicking estrogen and disrupting this cytochrome P450 enzyme in the liver of our phase 1 liver detoxifications, which impacts all hormones, all our CYPs. So this is why when I do test clients' genetics, yeah, your CYP1A1, right? So it helps remove compounds of estrogen. So your 2-hydroxyl and the other CYP1B1. So that's your more toxic estrogen compound for hydroxyl that basically your COMT genetics and your GSH as well, glutathione pathway, is those two are really responsible in converting that toxic compound that can lead to breast cancer, to prostate cancer, right? And same with the CYP3A1, A3, 3A4. Sorry, I mean, there's so many CYPs enzymes, which actually helps metabolize 50% of your drugs and, in medical drugs as well, too. So, I mean, imagine you're actually downregulating a lot of these things. A lot of things can build up in the body. So by just doing that, so this is why glyphosate is so disruptive. And so how many people are drinking out of plastic water bottles, right? The amount of plastics we're being exposed today, people are estrogen dominance, male estrogenic dominance. We are in a phase, in an epidemic of the male species being literally, oh my gosh, I can say, I mean, I can see it clearly from my own eyes. It's not complicated. Just go to Costco and see how many guys are estrogen dominant. A whole lot, let me tell you that. So men boobs are not normal, my friends. So if you're growing that men boobs, that's a big issue. So limit your plastic exposure. It's a huge issue. But if you're eating glyphosate on top of that, I mean, you're just heading on to your estrogen bucket. So estrogen dominance, and a lot of people in some of these genetics are a higher propensity towards, ovarian cancers, towards prostate cancers. So you're just heading on to that. So the CYP's enzyme, so this serves a really important role, right, in the body. So including making bile acids, again, detoxification. You cannot not have bile. That's the beautiful soap that helps coat the small intestine to make sure to prevent us from any pathogens and infections and things like that. And emulsify our fat. So activating vitamin D, so important. Detoxifying many toxic chemicals and break down prescription drugs, like I said. So the thing is with glyphosate, so it chelates and binds tightly to important minerals like cobalt, right, which we need for B12. Big issues. A lot of people who does not have methylation issues, right? Manganese, which manganese helps us detoxify other environmental compounds, so like gas and fuel exhaust from vehicles and cars, right? And zinc, right? Which also zinc is important cofactors for all the CYP's enzymes, which you need zinc. It's so important for so many things, as well as, your whole glutathione pathway when you go down into all the biochemistry. It's crazy. All zinc is used. A lot of people, we talk about magnesium, but zinc is so important, so important. And now that makes it unavailable for the cells to get. So that's a huge issue. So, but not only this, it affects, yes, the phase 1 liver detoxification pathway, but it also disrupts the phase 2 liver detoxification, by disrupting the sulfate synthesis and sulfate transport, which impacts the genes like the MTHFR, which a lot of people like to talk about. Newsflash, we all have MTHFR. It's which variants do you have, right? So I have 100% activity of MTHFR. Yes, I can say I'm fortunate, but you're not broken or a mess without it. With variants in it, it's just you're more predisposed to certain things, but you just have to optimize it, right? The COMT, but I have a slower COMT myself. Huge issue for a lot of people. MTR as well. And so in all the B12 and B9, all of that just plays a key role because they have to compensate. So basically what happened is when your sulfate pathway gets downregulated, your other methylation genes has to kick in order to actually detoxify, estrogenic compounds, chemicals that the salt genes we call are responsible for. So to help compensate, which is a huge issue. So now, which the COMT is so important in metabolizing what? Estrogen. So what about estrogen dominance? So now you already have too much estrogen from the plastics, from the glyphosates, from the food you eat, all of that stuff. And now your COMT is not working properly. Your salt is not working properly for sulfation. What is your chances to actually become and have issues? A ton. And then glyphosate also downregulates over 290 enzymes in biological pathways in the human body. Big issue. So now you would ask, where does glyphosate hide? So it hides in the digestive system, right? So from food contamination, so like the gallbladder, large intestine, stomach, pancreas, small intestine. Pancreas. Oh, wait. Can this potentially affect, let's call glucose issues? Absolutely. It can mess up a lot of these key enzymes and receptors in the pancreas, right? So that can stimulate and help with insulin. So the stomach, gallbladder. I mean, how many people have gallbladder problems? It's crazy. And the large intestine as well. So, I mean, gut bugs. Let's go. Let's kill all the good bugs and hope for the best. Good luck. Brain and sinuses, right? So, for especially the people that are, everybody just taking more in, but the one specifically, the lungs, affecting the lungs for people spraying it in fields or at home on your lawn. So, just stop that stuff. So, get over your weeds. Take them out like they're supposed to. By hand, there's other ways to do it. And then collagen integration of all joints. That's a problem. Huge issue. So glyphosate loves collagen, and I'll explain why. And so how many people with rheumatoid arthritis? Right? A ton. So, and again, some clinical correlations to glyphosate. So, food allergies and sensitivities, connective tissues weakness, so ACL tears, disc degeneration. A lot of people does. Osteoarthritis, hip, knee, and shoulder replacements, anxiety, depression, chronic brain inflammation, birth defects, multiple miscarriages, autism, middle age memory issues, memory loss, dementia, chronic Lyme, with advanced neurological and joint issues. So, and the thing is, so we have to talk about the whole collagen thing because, um, I mean, the body is made of collagen in many ways. We have a ton of it. So where is collagen found? So it's the main component in connective tissue. So we're talking about ligaments, tendons, cartilage, right? It's the main structural protein in the basement membranes. It makes up 2 to 6% of our muscle fibers. Makes up 75 to 80% of tendons and ligaments. Makes up 90% of our bones. So now we're talking if glyphosate is binding on to collagen or replacing a specific thing we call glycine, which I'll talk. That's a big problem. The central nervous system, right, is also made of collagen. So collagen is made up of the brain and spinal cord are completely enclosed by connective tissues, right? So all connective tissues are made out of collagen type. So it's very important. So collagen in human tissues and a glyphosate. So what does it do? So collagen makes up over 30% of the proteins in our body. So type 1 and type 3 make up about 90% of collagen in the whole body. And glycine is every third amino acid in collagen, making up 33% of the amino acids used to make collagen. So under normal circumstances, so normal collagen needs proper manganese and copper minerals. So now when you say, okay, so glyphosate is a mineral chelator. So now what about if we're depleting our manganese, which is important to detoxify from environmental toxins, fumes and gas and all of that stuff, and also with copper, like we're talking thyroid, we're talking liver health, we're talking low copper and issues with things like hydrogen peroxides, hair graying, huge issue. So glyphosate accumulation and integration into these collagen fibers, so basically it integrates itself into the collagen fibers, right, by acting as an analog for glycine. So it replaces glycine. So they really look alike, and so what happens, it creates rigid and brittle collagen, which it seems to be the primary reason for low cross-linking of fibers, where you'll have injuries, huge problems. So you have collagen degradation, and a lot of people with joints issues. There's many other studies which I've not even linked to, but in a lot of people, kids also in sports, many fractures and things. So and there's some huge correlation. So I mean, this whole thing with correlation and causation, but as to how can this actually impact? I mean, imagine this: you have all these kids working out or playing soccer, football, whatever you name it, on these fields full of glyphosates day in and day out all the time. And it's just, I mean, these are thoughts that I think about, and I think we have to be aware of that, and making that change is so important. So how can we know what our current levels of exposure are? So thus far, the best way is through urine testing, so which is available on RegenBiome online lab store. So on my lab store, so you can actually there's a test called the EnviroTox, which it tests for 39 common environmental toxins and metabolites, and glyphosate is included into that. So it tests for glyphosate. It's a pretty darn comprehensive panel, and I love this panel. And the reason why is obviously, oh, you're biased. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, of course. But it's a great tool for teaching and learning purposes. It's not to say this is an excretion of the body. So this is why I want people to understand, okay, so this can be a great tool. It does not mean that when you see elevations, like, oh my gosh, you're dying, or you're a mass, and no, but it's your level of exposure. So are you being exposed in high amounts or low amounts, right? It doesn't mean that if it's low, example, that you should not be practicing daily, lifestyle practices in order to help you detoxify from this invasive compound. No, you should. Everybody should. right? But at least if you see high levels of glyphosate and plastics and PCBs and other gas and chemicals, yeah, so that means for yourself, like you're highly being exposed to it. So why don't we actually move in the right direction to making sure that we help and support the body clear those out a lot better, and see over time you could retest and see if your level of exposure is a lot less and if the body's clearing it out well, right? So and so as you start clearing more out, your level should be going down. But if you're, still pounding it on the lawn and all of that, and then you're not doing anything about it, yeah, of course it's going to build up. I mean, good luck. I mean, what about years of building up in your collagen? Now you're a lot at higher risk, and a lot of people also have genetic predisposition towards ligament problem, disc problems, rotator cuff problems, of higher risk towards injuries. So now top that up on top of this, with glyphosate being invasive to collagen. I mean, you could take all the collagen you want, but I mean, if you're still being exposed to pesticides and herbicides like Roundup, yeah. So especially that one, the whole topic is on that. So which your PON1 gene, your PON1 gene is so important. So not that is, so we're going to talk about more about the PON1 gene again, but so again, and this environmental toxin so panel, it actually tests, it analyzes your body's levels of common pesticides, herbicides, plasticizers, preservatives, and excessive environmental exposure again. So really, really important. So, and I'm going to be putting all the links in the show notes to have access to at-home lab testing with the RegenBiome lab. So right now, currently, it's available for Canada and most country, and United States specifically. So, and it's delivered right to your doorstep. So you can order any labs that are being available right now. But to create an account, it's free, so it does not cost you anything, and every single lab will come with a 30-minute one-on-one consultation to go over the results, as well as a health analysis that I do prior to going over those results with you. And then so soon, blood work panels will also be available for USA and Canada. So Canada is going to be specifically right now for Edmonton and Calgary, Alberta, and Montreal. So in Quebec. So, but otherwise, it's going to be blood chemistry and blood work will be available all across the United States, except New York and New Jersey, if I recall. But other than that, it's going to be available for purchase as well, a la carte, and then you can add whatever you like. And if you have questions, you can always let me know. So let's continue. So what can we do to reduce exposure and detoxify from herbicides such as glyphosate and support our PON1 gene? So the number one thing that we can do first is testing your gene. So it's really important to know whether or not you have the variants of the PON1 gene. RS662, which does other one also in the PON1 that are responsible in the intensity of Lyme exposure, which I do in my more comprehensive panel. But the PON1 gene in the research, the RS662, is the most impactful one when it comes down to detoxifying from herbicides and pesticides and all of environmental chemicals. So it's really important. So number one thing, so genetic testing. So how can we go about it? So by the way, I have to say, so next week or this week coming up on our next episode, I have the amazing Dr. Christy Sutton, and she's the author of the book Genetic Testing, Defining Your Path to a Personalized Health Plan, who is a chiropractor also, and she also specializes in genomics. So, and she's a big fan of the PON1 gene, so I'm sure we're going to be addressing it. But so Dr. Christie we'll talk about. She did design an incredible little panel. So but right now I'm working on, I'm going to be working on possibly with her and see if there's a possibility that her software can actually convert the raw data from the company that I use myself, because it's thus far the genetic testing that I use myself in my practice with clients is the most comprehensive one, the most, I would say, not self-explanatory. Yes, the one that makes the most sense, because this is why DIY genetic testing does not work. It does not work. It's just a whole mess for people. Let me just take a sip of water. there's a whole lot of people doing DIY, and by all means, I have done so. Thus far, I have done 8 genetics testing myself, so I know. So I'm well. I know well. I know really well how DIY testing looks like. I mean, you have a bunch of information, and you're just completely clueless as to. You cannot design somebody's just a supplement, an automated supplement based on their genetics. You just can't. You can't. You need to assess this person's epigenetics, their exposure to toxins, or exposure, like how are they dealing with life? Are they stressed or not? Right? Obviously, everybody is, but there's levels. What are the current blood work? What are the current HTMA? Like, this is why you have it's a whole spectrum. You have to look at multiple things to combine all of those to have proper assessment for somebody. This is why functional genomics is a must. It's so important. Not to say I will not stop somebody, but I had done my 23andMe. A lot of people, yes, data collection, it's a real thing. So just be aware. But I had done my 23andMe in a whole day. So I was able to use that raw data and upload it into Dr. Christy Sutton's detoxification panel, which obviously there's a whole lot of information, but there's a whole lot of digging that comes with it, which is why going through with somebody to explain and go through that data is really important. So you need to have a full assessment. But so on our report, it is built into it. So that's going to be a great one to do. So you can actually get that. So I can put that in the show notes, or we're going to put that into the next episode. But yeah, so number 2, eating organic as much as possible. It's so important, especially the products above, right? So what we talk, so things like all these foods that are being sprayed on with glyphosate. So we have to make sure that the environmental working group is a great one. EWG.org is a great place to start. So working with the dirty dozen and removing the most common and toxic fruits and vegetables that are mostly impacted by chemicals and pesticides and herbicides and all of that. So things that don't have a shell, it's really notorious, right? So all your berries, for example, like always organic, so important. And it's about limiting our exposure, right? It's not about not being exposed. Good luck, right? We live in 2020. It's 2023, my friends. You're not gonna not get exposed to chemicals, and this is more about let's remove the garbage that comes in instead of because I'm a big fan of nutraceuticals and supplements. Absolutely, I think it's a must in this world and era. Try to survive and live in 2023 without that. Good luck. I mean, we don't live in the Himalayas up in the mountain, and even there, you're still going to be exposed nowadays because it's so invasive that the amount of chemicals are being sprayed everywhere. And I'm not neurotic and going around, oh my gosh, like I'm walking here and like, oh my gosh, this field. No, don't become this person that and I went through this because of fearing everything. No, you cannot become orthorexic about everything, and just create and do the best that you can, right, to limit your exposure. That's it. So again, proper basic multivitamin and antioxidants. There's so many biochemical pathway that relies on minerals and vitamins. So important first, and making sure that we optimize the gut, right? So the intestinal tracts, like as you can see, so you need a proper gut functions in order to a lot of chemicals and heavy metals as well, or metabolized in the gut by those little bugs, those good bugs. So if you're killing the gut bacteria, and I have yet seen somebody that has any sort of gut imbalances, right? So if you're complaining or you're being concerned about methylation, you will not have proper methylation detoxification without proper gut functions. You just can't, right? So gut-brain axis, so how our bugs are acting, our intestine are acting, affects the brain. So if you have stressor there, it does. I mean, and the thing is, a lot of bugs, the problem is the opportunistic bugs, they know when you're stressed. They have receptors on them that tells you when you are stressed. So when you're stressed, they're like, oh, perfect. JF is stressed right now. Let's go and make babies and grow. And voila. So it creates the perfect environment. So reducing stress, I would say it would be another one. Is just so important. We just must reduce stress levels and, have stress reduction practices, right? Whether it's breath work, whether it's meditation, whether it's going for a beautiful walk, whether it's just turn off your phone, right? Honor that. Oh yeah, JF, it's so easy to say. Yeah, of course. Yeah. My phone can stress the fuck out of me. But yeah, I'm driven to more dopamine. I know my genes, but I'm not gonna be like, okay, I'm a mess because of it. No, absolutely. We choose how we react to things, right? I have to remind myself too. I'm not perfect. And again, remember that the PON1 gene requires calcium as a cofactor to be promoted, right? So if you're a female breastfeeding, and you would just have to make sure that we get proper nutrients for those little kiddos, babies, right? And often the sad part of this is, a lot of people honestly don't know. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, but also you cannot be blindsided and think that you are being invincible in a sense of you're not being exposed or it's not a big deal. No, it is a big deal, right? It's all about accumulation. You may not feel or think that you're being exposed as much or it's not harming you as much right now. What about years of accumulation, right? I'm the canary in the coal mine. I'm more sensitive. So here's the thing. I'm a lot more sensitive to most chemicals and I feel it, right? I can smell things miles away. So I'm actually thankful to that and how more impactful they are right now for me, because I'm like, oh, cool. That tells me shit's going down. Let's act, let's do, and let's not wait, right? So again, things that are promoters that for the PON1 genetics, right? Even though if you don't know if you have a variant or not, right? These are good things to know. So selenium, right? Selenium is really important to also promote glutathione production. You need to have proper selenium. So I think 2 basal nuts a day is great. I think it's proper practice to do for everybody. And again, you have to watch out your intake of selenium, right? Not to go too much over 200 microgram. So microgram MCG. Again, this is not medical advice, but a lot of people, if you're pounding bags of Brazil nuts, also don't overdo it. Not so good. They're not there to just snack on and snack on. No. Brazil nuts are not a snack. They're not. Gives you proper amounts of selenium and some other minerals, really, but in small amounts. Small amount. AGCG, again, AGCG from green tea could be good, but also knowing your genetics, it could also be helpful because not everyone does well. It can be an inhibitor of other CYP enzyme pathways too. Blueberry is great antioxidant. It has many benefits. So I love my blueberries, especially have your blueberries on Mondays. Mondays are stressful days, like genetically. And then it's just funny how the body is wired, but knowingly, it's a great thing. So I love to start Mondays with like lots of blueberries, with a bit of protein and maybe some walnuts. It's wonderful tool for fat loss as well. Curcumin, which I'm on a curcumin journey right now. Okay, cool. I know what I'm more exposed or more driven towards too. So with my genetics, so curcumin is good, but for inflammation, a lot of people are taking it for inflammation and joint pain and all of that. But here's the thing: it's an MAO inhibitor. MAO, monoamine oxidase enzymes, are there to break down your neurotransmitters, right? Very important. Also as histamine. Huge thing. So if you're slowing down by taking curcumin, that's a problem. So some people have genetics like slow MAO, which you can have a buildup of these adrenaline, norepinephrine, all these things in the brain, which is not good, right? So be aware of that. So those are the things you got to be, aware of and know. So which I'm using it because of excess iron. So again, and these compounds can also, like curcumin, can speed up certain liver enzymes like the CYP3A4, which also can slow down the breakdown of pharmaceuticals, right, of drugs in our phase 1 liver detoxification. So, and it also is responsible at clearing the 16-hydroxyl estrogen. So obviously, if you're slowing that down and you have a buildup of estrogen, and pushing more estrogen of that compound, yes, of course. So in the research, the CYP3A4 excess, so it has shown excess of this also can create a higher risk towards prostate cancer in male and then ovarian cancers in female. So knowing your genes is very important. So things like DIM, all right, can help actually mimic the effect, remove the negative impact of of a TT variant in the CYP3A4, so which I do take because I have the genetics myself, and I have a slower CYP1A1, which is for the 2-hydroxyl estrogen. So I want to make sure that that is upregulated. So DIM, again, you got to know your estrogen levels and see. You don't want to push these pathways too hard, and then to now be depleted and not have enough estrogen, right? That is also a problem. So we got to know that. Okay. And then, so also, again, that's why knowing your phase 1 and phase 2 liver detoxification genetics is really helpful. But it's not an end all be all. And you cannot just zoom in too much all the time. But knowing that along the way is really helpful, especially if you're on some pharmaceutical compounds. I think knowing your genetics is freaking important. So important. How many lives could we save from potential toxicity from Tylenol, from aspirin? I mean, you want cause bleeding inside of you? Yeah, aspirin does it. Like, it's the warning labels is terrible, and a lot of people, and the new research coming out as well too, like, it's shown that aspirin is pretty terrible for bleeding. So you don't want to cause yourself inner bleeding, so not good. So just ditch that. Tylenol is a poison for people. It depletes your glutathione. You should not be given, I mean, non-medical advice, you do you, boo, but I mean, Tylenol is shown to impact the liver tremendously. So if a kid or somebody that has a fever, giving Tylenol is not the best thing at all. It depletes your glutathione, which you need to fight. So now you're inhibiting it. Not good. Okay, so sweating. So number 4, sweating 3 to 5 times a week, as proven. It is proven it will reduce your risk of cardiovascular issue or risk, right? So stroke, like, reduce you can reduce your risk of stroke by doing sauna practices. So I love an infrared sauna, like the Therasage, which I use every single week. 30 minutes, I try to aim for 30 minutes. But again, if you're looking at your HTMA, you're doing some blood work, and your adrenal are just taxed, don't go in crazy in the sauna. Pace yourself. See what your body, when it gets uncomfortable, get out, and work your way up. And then make sure you properly hydrate. You need to have proper minerals also to push out these chemicals. You must, right? This is why humic and fulvics are so important at balancing mineral balance as well. And when you're using a sauna, one of my great binders that I love and is actually formulated especially for that, and has shown incredible benefits in pulling that nasty compound of glyphosate out of the body. So HMET binder from Cellcore, which I use. So it's for heavy metal and environmental toxins, especially targeted pesticides, and her pulling out of that. So it's really rich in humic and fulvics, which fulvics are, it modulates. They can create and help the body create what minerals it's missing in the body. Pretty astounding as what it does. So, and it's got a bit of zeolite, and it's got some broccoli sprouts, which is also great for your superoxide dismutase gene as well. To a lot of people like myself have non-regulations. Okay, cool. So let's detoxify and support the detoxification of hydrogen peroxide. So it's really important. So if you have some hair graying, this is really good. Okay, proper hydration, mineralization, like I said, right? Since Roundup is water soluble, so you want to make sure you hydrate. Do not hydrate with tap water. Tap water is poison. It's just it's better than drinking from a stream. But again, I would still question it. But it depends where you are. But I would say, just making sure that you have proper, like I do not have discount codes, which I'm going to put access links to Cellcore as well too. So you have to get it through a practitioner, and I will offer all my listeners a 15% off on all Cellcore products. It has to be used cautiously. HMET binder is a pretty darn strong binder. When you're pulling stuff out, yes, understand that detoxifying the body requires energy. You need energy. So if you depleted your mitochondria, you cannot just go into a harsh detox. This is why I do recommend starting up. So with Cellcore, the phase 1 is great. It started opening up the drainage pathway. It's got great mitochondrial support nutrients, but you can't forget also the basic minerals and nutrients that you need, right? So like I like a 2-a-day multivitamin from Thorne example is one of them that I really like, which I'll put links to which also have 15% off on everything at Thorn as well too. But HMET binder, great binder. You can start working yourself up with a more gentle one that's still comprised of humic and fulvics as well too. Which plants love and thrives in nature. So it's a beautiful synergy that humics and fulvics. This is why I love like shilajit. Well, it's full of that stuff, so it's really important. And then they also use bioactive carbon technology, which actually helps the body repair itself. It boosts the immune system. It helps the delivery of other nutrients of your vitamins, which is why it's beautiful binders to combine with your food even. So oftentimes in the industry, what we hear is a lot of people are taking binders like activated charcoal. It's not the same thing, my friends. So with Cellcore binders, it's because they have a very, 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 very low pH in the 2 or 3, which meaning there's a lot of distortion in the industry with that. But a low pH, when it comes down to as a binder, it actually means there's a lot of energy of binding capacity versus activated charcoal that is basically just burnt charcoal, coconut shell. Huge problem for a lot of people. So there's not as much binding capacity and energy to carry toxins out, meaning that what about if there's not enough energy to do the whole process, right? There's risk of having things to be leached and completely, think about having a big mop. You're mopping some stuff out, but as you're pulling it out, things are just leaking out. And so instead of being fully trapped. So this is why I love these binders. So starting like phase 1 is great. It's got to be BCATP, which is great for mitochondrial functions, more fulvics in there, more hydration. It's got the CD minerals also in there. It's got some KL support with liver and kidney support. So important before we start detoxifying, as well as biotoxin binder, which is a more gentle. So if you're dealing with more pathogenic, more ammonia, it's a great binder to start up with. It does bind onto environmental toxin, and then you can work your way through with the HMET binder. So yeah, which is a great one. They do have a great detox kit as well for 3 months, which I'll put that as well too. It's a great place to start, but don't forget your foundation. You must make sure that you start with your foundation. And then number 7, monitor your PON1 gene. So through blood chemistry, again, it's not directly connected to it, but we want to know, especially running a lipid panel, right? Basic lipid panel, running homocysteine for our arteries. How's that, right? Because your PON1 is really responsible also in oxidation. So if you're having a lot of cholesterol issues or oxidized LDL, which I'm going to have some panels available for that too. So that's going to be included in the many of the panels that's going to be available at the RegenBiome labs. But I have included all these biomarkers, so homocysteine, CRP, MPO. So that's even from the basic panel. So my 1.0 panel. So it actually has a full lipid panel. It has homocysteine, which a lot of people don't run. So if people are all worried with MTHFR, well, you better run your homocysteine. If you're not, you're missing out. That's the whole point. CRP for inflammation as well to cardiovascular, MPO as well. When we look at monocyte degranulation. Oh my goodness, I can't get that word. But and monocyte activation. So right, so it's for infections, great marker to use. So, and then again, the last thing, testing your toxicity exposure, right? So can we start there? Yeah, absolutely. If you want, hey, you have budget, no problem. Go ahead. I think it could be done once. It does not necessarily have to be run twice. So you don't have to. Yes, of course, these functional lab testing comes at a cost, but they're great for assessing our exposure. All right, it's a great teaching tool, coaching tool. So I love this more as a coaching tool versus again, it's not a diagnosis thing. No, not at all, because that's not what we do. We're here to screen and see what the body is more exposed to, and voila. So, and then we go in and change the lifestyle habits. So we are wrapping up this episode at almost an hour already of me talking. This has been great. It's been fun. So again, thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions with anything, how to acquire and get yourself these labs. So again, everything's going to be in the show notes. So super excited to release this episode. I think it's going to be super impactful. So yeah, I will talk, you might consider as well, like I said, a little bit of a functional detox. It's good to do. It's more gentle. So again, my go-to is Cellcore Bioscience. So they have a detox support kit, which is about 3 months. So that can be done on, twice a year. Why not? We just need to tune out the body, which has HMET binder in it in the last phase. So which I would always use a binder before entering inside your sauna and post. So and they do have a 12-hour lifetime binding capacity in the body, so which is absolutely great for that. So making sure that nothing gets leached out, so it's a must. But yeah, this is it. 1 hour. We're gonna be ending this episode. So thank you so much for listening. Again, have a look at the show notes, questions, DM me, and share this episode if you feel that it's very valuable for your family, your loved ones, your friends, or whatnot. So greatly appreciated. Until next time. So we're going to be don't forget, tune in on the next episode with Dr. Christy Sutton, which I'm so excited to have on. Yeah, it's great. So she's been a blessing in my life when it comes down to iron overload, and so with her new course that she just released, Iron Curse, so and her coming up book. But anyways, until next time, see you later. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the RegenBiome podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, because that's what helps us to be heard and to be seen. If you'd like to connect with me directly or seeking private one-on-one health coaching, or if you have any questions about this episode, please reach out to me directly through my website, regenbiome.com, or on Instagram at JeanFelixCircot_JFT. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.